Alright, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to another Tech4Good series webinar with Microsoft, TechSoup Asia and Connecting Up. My name is Christine Harlem and I'm the Senior Events and Membership Coordinator at Connecting Up. We're based in Australia. I understand most of you here today are from Asia, different parts of Asia and as well as New Zealand, so welcome you and thank you for joining us today. So today's webinar is about Microsoft Office 365 and we're going to look at some of the key features that will be most useful for you, for your organization, and the key differences and what you can do with it and how it will benefit you. So today's presenter is Ryan Jones. So he's had quite a detailed setup process and play around with the different features. So he'll be able to answer all your questions today, or as many as possible that we can as the time allows. But before we begin our presentation, I will hand you over now to Jillian from Microsoft Citizenship, who we work with in partnership to deliver this webinar to you. So handing it over to you, Jillian.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, my name's Jillian Pearl and I'm part of the Microsoft Citizenship team in the regional office in Singapore. And we work very closely with nonprofits all across Asia Pacific to bring you our Technology for Good program. And what that is a capacity building program for the nonprofit sector through which we offer events and webinars and newsletters, articles, case studies, and all sorts of resources to really help the nonprofit sector use technology. So we're very excited to be bringing you this webinar today in partnership with Connecting Up, who are a nonprofit based in Adelaide, Australia. We also run this webinar series in partnership with TechSoup Global and TechSoup Asia in the Asia Pacific region. So Microsoft Office 365 for nonprofits is a solution that is available as a donation in most markets across Asia Pacific. So today's presentation, as Christine was talking about, Ryan will be taking you through the different features and the different applications that are part of the overall solution, and we hope to answer any questions that you have. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and we will also have time at the end of the hour for additional Q&A. And if there is anything that we can't answer today, we'll be sure to get back to you. So thank you for your time today, and we look forward to your questions. Back to you, Christine.
Thanks, Jillian. Just before I go on, I forgot to mention some housekeeping notes at the beginning as well, that we are recording this webinar, so if you do need to catch up again or refresh your memory at a later date, you can do so or share it with your colleagues so they all know about it as well. And as well, the slides will be attached with your email. And I will send all this information via email after the webinar. So I will now hand you over to Ryan to take you through the demonstration and the information.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. Like Gillian said, we will take questions throughout the webinar, so if there's anything that you want answered, feel free to type your question in the question box when it comes up, and we'll try and answer it straight away. So you might notice that my PowerPoint slides are in a web browser. This presentation I've actually put together using Office 365 and using PowerPoint web apps. So what I'll do is I'll explain a bit about Office 365 and then I'll provide you with a bit of a demonstration of some of the cool things that you can do and some of the things that would relate to what you're already doing with your existing Office. So I guess the first thing is, what is Office 365? And what it essentially is your Microsoft Office in the cloud. You get Office web apps, which gives you web browser based versions of all of the Microsoft Office software that you're already using, but you get that backed up with online storage and cloud databases and a whole range of other things that are going to help you better access your data wherever you are and whenever you need it. So what does the cloud actually do, and how does that actually work for your organization? The key thing with the cloud is that the cloud's actually a term that we use to reference a lot of web servers that are up in data centers all over the world. And what we've seen with cloud software is an increase in software as a service offerings. So that is where your software is provided on a monthly basis rather than buying it outright. So the way that cloud software typically works is you get access to it through a web browser or through some other tools, and you're getting the service of having somebody else host and manage that for you. How that typically works in terms of benefits is you get a lot of extra flexibility. So if you need to add additional users, you don't have to go out and buy a great big new server because you've maxed out your old one. If you need extra space, you can generally change the plan that you're on and get the extra space that you need without having to worry about that hardware. Hardware is always a big expense, so having somebody else take care of that is a big weight off your shoulders. It's also more often than not more reliable, because all of a sudden you don't have to worry about the reliability. You've got a guaranteed service up in a data center hosted by a crack team of experts, in this case from Microsoft. Office 365 uses multiple data centers and your data is automatically backed up, which again is one more thing that you don't have to worry about in terms of your data and in terms of your software. But one of the biggest things that always comes up when we're talking to people about cloud software is that it's always up to date. There's no more downloading of updates. There's no more worrying about whether your colleagues are on the same version. All of the users are always on the same version all of the time. So all of that essentially just equals peace of mind. You don't have to worry about it. You can just go ahead and use it. The technology gets out of the way and lets you get on with your job. Okay. So why would you want your Microsoft Office in the cloud? Well, one of the main reasons is that you can access your data wherever you want it, whenever you need it. You can access your desktop, your applications, your files from a web browser on any computer that you need to access them on. So this means that if you need to work on something at home and you've got a desktop PC at work, you can just log into your web browser and you can access what you need to access. One of the great things about Office 365 in that regard is that it remembers where you are up to in terms of editing a file. So if you start editing a file from your work computer, you save the file, it's in your online storage, your SkyDrive, and you can log into that from home. You can continue at exactly the same point that you left off in the document, and it's almost as if you're on the same computer. Office in the cloud, like I said, you get SkyDrive Pro. And SkyDrive Pro gives you 25 gig of your own storage, and that connects to SharePoint in Office 365 so that you have all of your documents in one space. But one of the good things about that is that you no longer have to worry about who's got the final approved version of a certain policy or whether you need some certain documentation. You can store it all in the one spot on SharePoint and you can access that whenever you need it. It makes it a lot easier to know that you're always working from the same up-to-date document. Automated backups is another really good plus, because if your files are stored on Office 365, they're backed up by Microsoft's team of server experts, which means that you don't have to worry about backing it up so much. So again, it goes back to that peace of mind issue where all of these things that you traditionally have to worry about in terms of technology are now taken care of for you, and they make life a lot easier. Well, my favourite thing about Office 365 though is that you don't need to run your own servers anymore. Office 365 will allow you to use your existing servers if that's what you need to do, and it will integrate with Active Directory on your existing Windows server. But all of a sudden organisations that have always wanted to run their own servers but couldn't afford the cost of the hardware, the cost of the maintenance, or just didn't have the internal knowledge to be able to manage them, can now have world-class email and calendar hosting. They can run their own SharePoint. All of a sudden you have access to enterprise-grade technology that would otherwise be unobtainable. And to me, not having to run your own servers is a big headache removed. All right. So the other things that you get with 365 are all of your favorite Microsoft Office tools. So you get web-based versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint and OneNote. I'm using the web-based version of PowerPoint right now. You can work collaboratively on your documents. So if I wanted to share a file with Christine, I can ask Christine to review that file and she can edit it in real time and make comments while I watch or while I work on another part of the document, which means that Christine no longer has to wait for me to finish what I'm doing. She can start straight away while I'm still working on the document. The picking up where you left off on different devices I discussed before, but it's a really handy feature if you are, particularly if you're working on a big document or if you're actively reviewing and editing a document, being able to remember where you picked up and left off without having to put markers in the document means that you can go straight there, particularly if it's a very large document. And with some versions of Office 365, you also get access to mobile apps so that you can edit your documents wherever you are. Now, Touch 365 includes hosted Microsoft Exchange. Now, anybody who hasn't used Microsoft Exchange before may like to know Microsoft Exchange is Microsoft's very powerful email hosting tool. But the great thing about Microsoft Exchange as well is that it provides shared calendars. I know that for a lot of organisations before they've used Microsoft Exchange, being able to do something as simple as share calendars with colleagues, be able to book meeting requests in, things like that becomes quite an issue. With Exchange, not only is it taken care of, but with Office 365, it's managed and provided for you. All you have to do is use it. One of the great things that we use Exchange for in the Connecting Up office too is to manage our meeting rooms. We have 2 rooms at Connecting Up that we can use for meetings, and with only 2 rooms and 13 people, sometimes they can get pretty popular. So we can use Microsoft Exchange to manage resources like that, which means that we don't double book meetings, means that people are always available. Hosted Microsoft Exchange with Office 365 gives you 50 gigabytes of storage per user, so you've got plenty of room for those big attachments and a long archive of emails.
And there's a few questions about SharePoint here. I'm not sure if you'll be covering in detail, but if you can just explain for now what SharePoint is and what it does, and how it works with the Office 365 environment, how the documents share and send to mail to alert to the users.
Are all the questions on SharePoint? Excellent. Okay, we'll go to the next slide because it's on SharePoint. So one of the other things that 365 and hosted Microsoft SharePoint is a system where you can set up your own internal or external websites. The great thing about an internal website or an intranet is that it gives you internal storage where you can put all of your policies, you can share files, and everyone can keep up to date with what's going on in an organisation. I generally find that the larger the organisation, the more important something like that is, because in some cases you've got staff in different locations and they find it really valuable to be able to catch up with what's going on in the organisation and what's going on in different offices. Now, SharePoint integrates with SkyDrive Pro to provide you with online storage, and this will become a bit more obvious when I do the demo in a minute, but it means that you can access these files using SkyDrive and you've always got access to the important policies, procedures, whatever you choose to store in SkyDrive. And again, SharePoint just provides another point of collaboration, another way to keep your documents up to date, and another way to just eliminate a little bit of that internal confusion or miscommunication that can come up around different files in different locations. The common thing that with a lot of organisations I speak to is the dreaded X drive or the dreaded J drive or some form of network storage that an organisation might have that has been around for so long that it's just become a bit of a mess. Moving to SharePoint makes it a lot easier to search and a lot easier to make sure that everything's in one easy to manage, easy to use place.
Thanks, Ryan. We do have a couple of other questions here. I might just go through one of them so that we can go through with the presentation and then address the rest a bit later. It's from Lorindo. It's basically asking if we assume distributed team members are using their own devices with individuals' Microsoft Office license, how can an organization use Office 365 and integrate it so that workflows are still streamlined among team members using their own resources?
If you're using particularly Office 2013, Office 2013 integrates really, really well with Office 365. Office 2013 prompts users to store their files in their SkyDrive, which means that you're still getting that backup, you're still getting that online archive, and you're still having instant access to it. But the other thing is that just because they've got their own computer doesn't mean they can't still use Office web apps. And I think when I show the demonstration of Word, Office Web Apps Word, you'll see just how powerful these tools are now and just how easy they are to use. But certainly they can use their existing Office 2013. It'll work really well. It'll work with their existing workflows and they can store those files in SkyDrive Pro, but still keep in touch with SharePoint and everything else that's going on. That's one of the really, really powerful features of Office 365. It's really good for teleworkers, it's really good for people that work remotely because all of a sudden all of these files are stored in a central hosted area. It's very high speed hosting, so the files are able to be accessed really quickly, and it means that any staff that are external to your office aren't. Sometimes if your file server's behind a standard internet connection, it can be a bit slow to access to, but your external staff aren't disadvantaged at all.
I've just quickly asked another question because we talked about Exchange before. So for Microsoft Exchange, can you log in using an email of a different domain, for example, Gmail or Yahoo?
Now with Office 365, it's really designed for you to use your own domain. So it's designed for your organisation email, and that would be my recommendation anyway. Using your organisation email can often look more professional, and it can give an extra sense of identity to your organisation. Okay, so moving on. We're actually almost finished the slides. So Office 365 Enterprise E1 for charities. So Microsoft donate this 100% free of charge to not-for-profits. So the basics are that you get your hosted email through Microsoft Exchange, you get your simple file sharing through SkyDrive Pro and through SharePoint. One thing that I haven't really touched on so far is that you get access to video conferencing and instant messaging through Microsoft Lync. And that's really powerful because traditionally video conferencing and instant messaging, other than a couple of the free solutions, has been really costly. So having access to that enterprise-grade supported video conferencing and instant messaging, again, provides another tool in your toolkit to keep your teleworkers engaged and to conduct meetings all over the world. Office Web Apps is a really powerful version of Office which allows you to work on your documents, and it does provide those collaboration features. Once you've started using those collaboration features, it's really difficult to go back because you just love it so much. It provides you with the opportunity to run a public website through SharePoint, or you can set up an intranet or a private website like I was talking about for your documents, and those are an optional part of Office 365. So that's a feature Microsoft is providing you. If you have an existing website, then you can keep using that existing website, but for many organisations it takes the pain out of setting up a website, makes it a bit easier to get online. And if we have any techies in the audience, we always get a question about Active Directory. If you already have a server and you do want to continue to integrate with Active Directory to manage your user credentials and permissions, that's possible through Office 365. And the other really good feature, which is not something that's common at the moment, is that Microsoft will fully back Office 365 with 24/7 technical phone support. So if you do have any problems with any part of the setup or any part of using Office 365, you do have that support network to fall back on.
Going back onto when you mentioned Enterprise E1 plan, is this going to be free for a limited time only, or is this a continuous offer?
At this stage, it's a continuous offer. I'm not sure whether Gillian wants to answer that question.
It's a continuous offer.
Thanks, Gillian.
Great. Just another one. There's a question about when will Office 365 E1 be free for not-for-profits in Australia?
That's a very good question. It should be some point this year, but if you're already signed up with Connecting Up, then there is no way you can miss out on that, because we'll be making sure that everybody knows about that as soon as it launches.
In New Zealand?
In New Zealand, it's actually already available. And how do you get it? You can get it direct from Microsoft. So just visit microsoft.com/Office365 nonprofits to sign up. You need to answer some questions about your not-for-profit so that our team and Microsoft's team can validate your not-for-profit status. And once that's happened, then you've got your free Office 365.
Are there any limits on the number of licenses available under the E1 deal?
No.
So I guess we do have a couple other questions, but I think should we go into the demonstration first? Sorry?
No, I think let's take the rest of the questions first, and then we'll go through the demo.
Sure. A question about a multi-organization setup that someone currently has. Is it necessary to integrate with one central Active Directory, or is it possible to tie in multiple Active Directories?
I think that's probably a question best asked to our tech guys. So if you want, we'll get back to you after the webinar with the answer to that one.
Another question from Princess, does everyone or all the computers in the organization need to have the Office 365 installed, or only the moderator?
Well, you don't actually have to install it. It all operates in a web browser. So that way it's more tied to the user rather than the computer. And if a user comes in for the day and ends up using a different computer than they usually would, all it is a matter of logging into their Office 365, and then they've got access to all of the files as they left them.
A question from Lorindo. Will the recent release OneDrive or SkyDrive be applied to this offering to charities?
Yeah, so OneDrive is the new name for SkyDrive, and that will be phased in over the next couple of months.
One final question for this stage from Isaac. Is there any resources for setting up AD integration?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Is there any resources for setting up AD integration?
Yes, there are. There's some resources in the admin interface for doing that. That's probably a bit more of an advanced implementation, and we will have some information about that on our website soon.
Actually, a few more came through then. Does one lose any functionality in Office 365 versus Office 2013?
It depends on what you do. For certain uses, particularly with some of your more advanced Excel coding and macros and things, the desktop version of Excel 2013 is probably going to be a better bet. And at this point in time, there's no version of Access for Office 365. So it's totally down to your usage. In typical usage, most organisations can get by just with Office web apps, but I think there's always going to be a couple of power users that really push the limits and might be better using the desktop version of Office 2013 but integrating with Office 365 with that backup of SkyDrive.
Well, we do have quite a lot of questions coming through. So from Tommy, may I know SharePoint and Office 365 can support MS SQL report servers?
That's not something I know off the top of my head. I would suggest we'll get back to you after the webinar on that one.
Great. Just before we continue with the Q&A, it's great to see so many questions coming through. I'd just like to hand you back over to Gillian. Gillian would like to share with you a bit more about getting it as a donation. So, Gillian, just over to you for a minute.
Thanks, Christine. There are just two things that I want to highlight, and when we do presentations on Office 365 and answer questions, many of the questions you've been asking are the common questions we receive. So to the question, and Ryan answered this beautifully, but to give you a bit more information, if you're interested in getting Office 365, what we also recommend is through the TechSoup program, which Connecting Up run in Australia as well as in New Zealand, you can get Office 2013 as a donation through the TechSoup program and pay a small administrative fee. And this is true throughout most of Asia Pacific, where we have a TechSoup program, TechSoup Global or TechSoup Asia. So you apply for Office 365, and that goes directly to you. And then you go to TechSoup Global and you can apply for Office 2013. So as Ryan was saying, if you are one of those power users or you have many power users in your organization, or you simply like the idea of being able to work offline on your PC or on your laptop with the full functionality on your laptop, then that combination of those two donations is a really great combination. So we can easily send you more information about that after the webinar. The second point I wanted to make about the Office 365 donation process is that once you apply for Office 365 through the URL that Ryan shared earlier, and again we'll send that out after the webinar, you go in and you answer the questions as Ryan said, and then there is a validation process that takes a little bit of time. So after you've input your details, you'll see that you'll be signing up for a trial to kickstart the donation process. After you've entered your details, you've kickstarted the trial, there will be a number of weeks where at the back end we are validating your application and making sure that you meet all of the eligibility criteria for the donation program. So that does take some time, and I just want to highlight that because we often receive emails a few days after people have applied saying, when am I going to get my donation confirmed? But it does take a number of weeks. So I just wanted to highlight that point. Thanks, Christine.
Thanks very much, Julian. That's very, very helpful. I guess time frame is another thing that people usually get anxious or was it received or not. So thanks for clarifying that bit as well for us. So going back to the questions, it's just adding up as time goes by. The next question is from Donna, and she's asking if you can explain the difference between E1 and E3 plans, which is Enterprise 1 and Enterprise 3 plans.
There are a couple of key differences between E1 and E3. One of them is that E3 includes a downloadable version of Office 2013. Some of the other differences are based around the technical setup of your organization. So there are things like some differences in how you can archive your email. There are some minor differences in terms of data loss prevention. There are a couple of really, I guess, techie reasons to switch to E3 instead of E1. When I've spoken to majority of organizations, the killer 1-2 punch of Office 365, we don't find many organizations need the extra features of E3.
Thanks, Ryan. A question from Chris. Is access to documents on SkyDrive based on the user's login? So like some users will have access to sensitive files while others will not see them.
Yes. And if I go to my SkyDrive here, you can see that I've got access to files that are shared with everyone, or the couple of files that I've created. So there's my PowerPoint presentation we've just watched, and here's my example Word document, and I can choose who I want to share that file with. And so I can share that with the internal people in the organization. In the case of my organization here, I have a test account, so I only have 2 people in my organization, which means I can only share it with myself. However, I can also invite people external to the organization to be able to view that document. If I need to work with other people on it, I can provide people with the links so that they can view the file who may be outside of my Office 365. And basically I get really powerful tools to control who has access to which one of my files. From an organization standpoint, you can do the same thing with your administrator user, and you can share all your individual folders separately.
Great. The next question from Edward. Can the administration be done by both Mac and Windows users without any difference in terms of user functions for the Office 365 web apps?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the administration, this is the Office 365 Administration Center. All you need is a web browser, basically, and you can access it straight away. You can see here that my 365 Admin Center gives me some really helpful videos to help me with what I need to do or how I can set up my things. I have a whole range of shortcuts here that are going to be useful in terms of common things that an administrator might be requested, things like resetting user passwords, adding a new user, and a whole range of resources to really help me administer Office 365. And that works just fine on Mac or PC.
Great. Another question from Lorindo. Can an organization pick and choose which components of Office 365 they want to use? For example, they want to use file sharing in the apps, but they don't need to use the domain email integration.
Absolutely. When you register with 365, you can manage things like that. It just depends on how you set it up in your specific case. In your case, Lorindo, it sounds like you probably want to use your existing Active Directory to manage some of your users, so I think yours is probably going to be a bit of a special case. My best recommendation would probably be to sign up for the trial and start playing with it and start seeing how you think it can fit together, and then there are always resources out there to assist you with your exact setup.
Just the last question for now. Can there be more than one administrator?
Absolutely. You can go to your users and you can change. So I've got, in my case, I've got two with the same name. I've got my test user and I've got my own user, and I can edit their settings and edit their security groups and delegate them as admins. So it makes it really easy to manage different admins. Just depends on how much permission you need to give each user. Okay, so let's get out of my PowerPoint and let's have a look at some files that I prepared earlier. So now what we're looking at is PowerPoint Online. So PowerPoint Online, what I've done to access this file is all I've done is gone to my SkyDrive, which is an easy access bookmark from the top menu of Office 365, and I can click on my file and it opens up in my web browser and I can access my slideshow. So the slideshow that we were watching before, all I did was click Start Slideshow and it appeared in my browser, which means that I can take it anywhere and I can demonstrate it to anyone. Now if I want to edit my presentation, and we had a lot of questions before about using it with Office 2013, I can choose to edit my PowerPoint in Office 2013 if I like, or I can choose to edit it in PowerPoint Online. So if I use PowerPoint Online, this may look familiar to some of you. The interface is very similar to Office 2013. So I think for a typical user who's already using Office 2013, you're going to be able to pick up where all the features are relatively quickly. So you can see that I can click into my box and I can make my text edits. Test, and I can create new slides. So here are all my templates for my slides. We can add a comparison slide. So all of this functions exactly like PowerPoint on a desktop. And I still have the backup option if I want to open it in PowerPoint. What I also have is I have access to save it. I have access to print it just like a normal version of PowerPoint, but I also have access to these great sharing tools so that I can embed the presentation in a website, or I can share it with people who are internal to my organization or external. So I just have more collaboration features. I might want to work on this presentation and then I might want to say to Christine, hey Christine, what am I missing from this presentation? What do I need to add? And Christine can then go through and she can add her notes to the presentation, which makes it a lot faster to review. But in terms of features here that I have access to, there's pretty much everything that I would usually use in a PowerPoint presentation. I still have my reading view, I still have my slideshow, I still have access to my notes down the bottom here. It's all very easy. Okay, so now I will go back. I'll exit my PowerPoint. And so that's been saved for me. So again, I don't have to worry about that. That's been saved and backed up and I am good to go. Now what if I want to add a new document? It's as easy as clicking the new document in my SkyDrive and I can choose to add a Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, even a survey in Excel. Or I can upload an existing file. So if I have a file that I've been creating in Office 2013 that I forgot to save on my SkyDrive, I can still upload it when I need to. So if I create a Word document, I can call my Word document whatever. SkyDrive. This is also creating new habits as well. So organisations with the standard organisations with typical network storage always have the problem where users don't store all the files on the server, they store them on their own computer. And what happens is, if something happens to their computer and the file is lost, by using Office which is automatically backed up, and we don't have to worry about backing up those files and losing that data.
So Ryan, can you try creating an Excel survey? Just like to see how it looks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So I'll go back to my SkyDrive and let's create another new document. Let's create a survey. My Excel survey. And you can see on the end it's creating a typical Excel file. But it's just a XLSX file, the same as Office has used since Office 2007. So it's a very compatible file. You can also see in the background there that Excel Online does look very familiar again. Interface to Office 2013, which again means that it's a lot more easy to find what you need without a big learning curve. So enter my first question here. What is your name? And I can even add a subtitle. Please enter your name, and the response is text. And for my survey, I really need to know the respondent's name, so I'm going to make that required. And the default answer might be Ryan, because maybe we want to provide an example. So let's choose a follow-up question. Paragraph text. What did you think of my webinar? Please provide a short response. And that one's probably not required. We'll leave that there. Now, because we've got a range of tools here, we can do yes, no, we can do a limited choice, date and time. So let's do a yes, no. Did you enjoy the webinar? And yes, no. And the default value, well, I'm not going to want everyone to choose no, so let's make that yes. I hope everybody enjoys the webinar. But that's probably a better question than what did you think of my webinar, because it's a lot easier to analyze did you enjoy the webinar with a yes, no, than what did you think of my webinar. So I can go back and I can delete that question. And it's disappeared. So, but now paragraph, do you have any other comments? Please write a short paragraph. So we have the option to nicely format this. We have the option to put a little bit of a subtitle to provide some explanatory text. We have a range of options that we can put here, which are going to provide us with the option of easy analysis later on, in terms of numbers, in terms of choices. Choices would be a really good one. Are you interested in implementing Office 365 now? Hopefully you all say yes, but let's go with yes as our first choice. no as our second choice, maybe as our third choice. And let's make the default yes. So that I've created a very simple, very short survey there, and I can enter my title here. This is Office 365 webinar survey. This is a description, and we're done. So I can save that now and view it, and that's what my survey looks like. So this is very easy. I've got a short survey here, and I can allow users to submit it online. So what am I going to do with my survey? I'm going to share it. So now I've been given this great URL here, and I can copy that, and then I might want to go to, I'm going to exit this one. So now that the survey is publicly shared, I've got the URL. I'm going to go to my Outlook. So this is using Microsoft Exchange for email. You can see I don't have very many emails at the moment. Now what I might want to do is create a new email, and I'm going to send that to my work email address. And if I had users, other users on this, like my admin, I can type in part of the URL, part of the email address, and it's added my admin user. Please take my survey and allow. So there's the URL to my survey, and I can use that URL in any communication that I like. So if I'm formatting a nice HTML email that's going out to my audience, I can send them just that URL and I can get them to have a look at it. I can also just open it myself. So if you use online survey tools at all, or you've never used an online survey and you're looking for a really easy way to do it, well, I can put Christine's name in the survey and say she did enjoy the webinar. Did you have any other comments? And so I can submit that. And that response has been received. And you can see, like magic, it's appeared in my Excel spreadsheet. And so now what I can start to do is I can start to analyze the data in the spreadsheet, and that's taken me no more than 5 minutes. That's been really easy, and for my users, it's a really short way of providing me with that level of feedback. And that's all integrated into Office 365, makes it very easy to set up something as complicated as a survey in a couple of clicks. And so that probably is a bit more of a power user example, but that's an example where we've used the benefits of having Office 365 in the cloud to provide us with that direct data link.
Thanks, Ryan, for the comprehensive demo. And should I add that I do surveys a fair bit, and that's a really good way, because I think usually when you run surveys, you have to pull out the data, extract it, open it in Excel, and analyze it that way or rearrange it. But this way, you don't really have to worry about data entry anymore. Data input is all already collated, so all easy. Great. Just a couple of other questions. I'm not sure if there's a lot more other demo that you have planned, Ryan, but just a couple of questions here. What project resources do you have for organizations who are planning to transition to Office 365?
We're launching a couple of new programs shortly which will help with the migration. But in the meantime, we're working on a range of resources that are going to provide you with a bit of extra information in terms of your migration. One of the things with migration to Office 365 is that it is totally dependent on what environment that you're using at the moment and how many users you've got. So it is a bit of a case-by-case basis, but we're going to be doing our best over the next couple of months to help you with the migration and to provide you with the right information.
Question from Michelle. If each user receives 25 gigs of online OneDrive storage, how much would SharePoint have available? And how is SharePoint's OneDrive shared with personal OneDrives?
That's a really good question. So every user gets 25 gigabytes of storage. In terms of SharePoint's OneDrive, I think that's still tied to the user storage, but I'd probably need to investigate that a bit further for you. Probably depends on how you set that up.
Is there a recommended bandwidth for internet access?
The basic answer to that is that the more users you've got accessing Office 365 in one office, the faster the internet connection you're going to need. It's totally down to the number of users you've got. If you only have a small number of users, 5 to 10 users, you could make do with a basic broadband connection, maybe 5 to 10 megabyte internet connection. But definitely when you start looking at larger organizations like 20 to 50 users, then that's the point where if they're all trying to access Office 365 at the same time, you probably want to start looking at a faster internet solution.
So given all the files are backed up, how would we go about restoring a file from an older version if it's accidentally deleted?
I believe your files are actually versioned, which means that you should be able to access the older version. Again, we probably have to get back to you on that one.
So just going through the next one, is retrieving a file backup a task that an admin user can perform? So that's somehow related to the previous question.
Interesting. A lot of people seem to be more interested in users deleting their information rather than a catastrophic server failure. We're going to have to look into that and get back to you. I think that's probably the best way of doing it, just to make sure that we give you exactly the answer that you need. So what we'll do is we'll email you that information after the webinar.
Julian was saying there's 99.9 guaranteed uptime with Office 365. So I'm not sure if Julian wants to elaborate on that.
Basically Microsoft will back up your files, and Microsoft servers 99.9% uptime is essentially going to mean that your Office 365 is going to be available all the time. I guess the question is how a user accesses a file from a backup if that file accidentally gets deleted. And that probably also comes down to how you provide your permissions as well. So what we'll do is we'll look into that one and we'll get back to you.
Great. Just going back to, we did talk earlier about co-authoring documents so that people can edit it at the same time and use. So just to clarify, so when you have more than one person editing the same document, so people can see those edits that the other users typed?
Yeah, and what it typically does is color code them so that it's not, if I share this file, with my other user, so what it typically does is in review, you will see the comments here as they come up, but you'll also, if you're into review mode, you'll also see what changes they're making to the file, and that will all be color-coded depending on which user is accessing what at the same time, and all of the comments will actually show the user's name. So Christine is commenting on my file. This is a comment. So you can see here my name, this is a comment, and one really, really cool feature which will change the shared editing features is the fact that I've got this little button here, I can reply, but you can also have you can mark them as done, but I can then go on and I can have a link conversation with that user. And I can say, oh, okay, Christine, this comment that you've left on my file, what did you mean by that? Which, again, is a powerful way of making sure that teleworking employees are included, because a conversation that we typically have in the office, we can now have over Lync from anywhere in the world. Okay.
Hey Ryan, just another question that just comes up relating to that editing. How many users can edit on the same document at the same time? And is it applicable for all the document types like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc.?
It's applicable to all the file types. I've never seen anyone hit a limit in terms of how many users can access it. So I'm not sure that there is one. Most organisations, I wouldn't imagine, would have enough users editing at one point to worry it. So let's look at a couple more things. So I had Outlook open before. So here's so this looks very much like your standard Outlook. You can open a new email. I can see here that I have shared a new file where I can just click straight in here and access the file. I can follow this document to get updates as the file is changed by other people. And I can also sort my inbox. So if I might be on a lot of group emails, I might want to just see the emails that were sent to me, emails that I've flagged, things like that. But the calendaring features are also really powerful and really useful. I've got instant access to my calendar wherever I am, which is really useful because I often forget what appointments that I've got. So I can also share this. So I can share this with my test user. But one thing that I'm really bad for is forgetting to tell my girlfriend when I'm going away. And so she has trouble tracking me down sometimes. So what I can do is I can share my calendar with her as well. And she can see the details of my appointments and work around that. So I've got that extra level of sharing power and that extra level of balance, which is really useful in terms of making sure that people can set appointments with me, making sure that I can have meetings with colleagues, and making sure that I don't double book myself. And anyone who's used Exchange email before knows that it's a really well supported protocol, and it's really easy to use Exchange email and Exchange calendars on your Windows phone, your Android phone, and your Apple device. So you get that extra level of compatibility. So I can go to my meetings for today. I can add my appointments. So I guess the one thing that keeps coming up in this demonstration is that it's called Office 365. It's got a slightly different name to Office 2013, but it all functions very, very similarly. Anybody who is familiar with Office 2013 can pick up a web browser and can get used to using Office 365 very quickly, very easily. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how Office 365 can help your organization. Having the power of Microsoft servers without the headache of managing your own servers, having all of this extra functionality at your disposal, but still being able to use Office in the same way that you've always been using it. And the best thing is Microsoft making all of this available, the E1 plan available free, really provides a powerful toolkit for a not-for-profit to take advantage of the new technology and to help better engage your teleworking employees in particular.
Thanks, Ryan. I understand that it has come to the end time of the webinar. However, we do have just a few final questions that came across that I would like to get Ryan to address if possible just before we close. So firstly, we didn't talk much about Lync at all, and Lync is part of the E1 plan. So can you just give a bit more background on that, and whether Lync's functionality, is it equivalent to something like GoToWebinar?
Lync can be used to have conversations with a large number of people, similar to GoToWebinar, or it can be used to have conversations within your organisation. The easiest way I find to usually explain Lync is it's almost like having your own private organisation-wide version of Skype. So you can have high-definition video calls, you can have audio calls, you can invite people from external to your organisation to join your conversation. One thing I've just spotted in the email screen that's in front of us, you'll see here that this email has been sent to me, but it's been sent to my test account. There's a small grey box next to it, which means that I'm not logged in at the moment. But you'll see this is CC'd to me at my other test account. It's a green box. The green box means that I'm currently online. So what I can do is I can have a conversation with me straight away, and rather than trying to contact me by email and have a long email chain. So this is what Microsoft Lync actually looks like. You can have your favorite contacts. It's very similar to Skype in a lot of ways, and I understand Microsoft are bringing Skype and Lync integration by the end of the year. So that will be another way that you'll be able to keep track of all your contacts. Lync is available to all the users, and you can administer it in your admin console just like all the other features. You've got your different users, you've got your dial-in conferencing, and you've got your meeting invitation settings so that you can customize your invitations. Again, without having to have somebody who's familiar with Lync that can configure a server for you.
Thanks, Ryan. Just a final question here. What would you recommend someone looking at transitioning to Office 365 in terms of how they determine exactly what they need? They currently run individual versions of Office 2003, or is it 2013? It says 2003, so I'm not sure whether that was a typo. And it's not networked at all, and they currently have about 20 users.
If you are in New Zealand, I will bring it up on the computer right now. We have just soft launched a new program called Office 365 Readiness Assessment, which is available on our website. And Office 365 is designed to give you a rundown on what you need for Office 365 for your specific organisation. So it takes your specific circumstances into consideration, and it provides you with a dedicated list of the things that you should do before you migrate to 365. And our partner in that program, InfoExchange, is another not-for-profit. They'll provide you with a quotation on migrating your services if that's something that you need assistance with. So that's one of the ways that we're helping to bridge the gap for not-for-profits between looking into Office 365 and actually implementing it. But again, if you set up that trial account, then you can get started with Office 365. And if you've got an internal tech team, they can start to experiment it and start to look at it.
So that's the end of the question time. Well, that's the last question that we had, and I think we have covered a lot of questions that came from you guys, and it's great to see the variety and the fact that all of you want to know more and learn more about Office 365 and how it can help you. So if you do have any further questions, please feel free to contact us. Again, I will send an email with a follow-up with some resources available, the recording of the webinar, and also some of the slides. So send us an email back if you do have anything that you think of later on that you would like to ask us about, or ask Ryan about. And also, for those of you whose questions we couldn't really answer during the webinar and we promise we'll get back to you, we will get back to you, so we'll email that offline. Gillian, before we close, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to thank everyone again for joining us, and along with the resources after the webinar, we'll also send you the Microsoft Tech4Good newsletter that you can subscribe to, and that's the best way to find out about future webinars and conferences that we hold in your various countries, as well as free resources from Microsoft and nonprofit partners like Connecting Up. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Gillian. So just following through from Gillian, once again, thank you, Ryan, for taking us through Office 365. Thank you, everyone, for participating and for asking the questions. And as Gillian mentioned, we are running this Tech4Good series pretty much monthly, so sign up for the newsletter, and we will also send you, obviously, emails for more information on the next webinars. So thank you. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you at the next one.